Manda Scott. I used to be a veterinary surgeon specialising in equine neonatal intensive care, which essentially says I spent a lot of other people's money using very expensive machines to try and keep thoroughbred foals alive. And I gave that up 20 years ago to become a novelist. And for the past year and a half, I have been putting almost all of my energy into something called accidental gods, which is my attempt to help the world, humanity, to move towards conscious evolution. I think it's something over which we have agency in a world where personal agency might be feeling less available. I also think it's a route through, possibly the only route through, to our future, to our having a future that doesn't involve total chaos and human extinction. That is occupying most of my attention when I'm not in the field of the foal, although, of course, the coronavirus pandemic and everything that arises from that has been also occupying my attention. We live in an unpredictable world. We always have, but one of the comfortable untruths that we tell ourselves as people is that we can make the world predictable. That if we can only gain control over enough stuff, we can make sure that tomorrow is what we want it to be, and that the unpredictability of the world will go away. And every spiritual path there has ever been has put quite a lot of its effort and time into trying to explain to people that this is a fantasy, that unpredictability is baked into the existence of life on this planet. But we like predictability. We like to be able to think that tomorrow will be a reasonably good approximation of today and possibly better. Definitely not worse. As we go forward from this utterly predictable human pandemic, what we want to do is to create a vision of a future that is not an iteration of the past. So we need to create a world which feels different, a world that is not predicated on the normals that we have now, the normal that humanity is extractive and that's what we need to be, that humanity is competitive, each with the other, and all of us with the whole of the rest of the web of life, because that's the way the world is. And we need to create a new normal that isn't that. And one of the foundations of accidental gods that I'll talk about in a little bit is that no problem is solved from the mindset that created it. And we need to take that on board. And that means that in our desire to create a new normal, we need a new mindset. But the desire to create a new normal grows out of the old mindset. We're in a kind of iterative loop, a philosophical catch-22. I have ideas of how we step out of that, but one of the things that I think is most important as we create our new narrative, as we try to envision a future in which our children, our children's children, 7 generations down the line, which is what the indigenous peoples have always taught us we need to imagine. We want to create a world in which they are thriving and flourishing, and that means that the whole of the web of life is also thriving and flourishing with them. And if we're going to do that, we're not going to do it by thinking harder. We're going to do it by feeling more completely and feeling more connected to the world around us, to the other than human world. Although we cannot know what the radical transformation of humanity will emerge as, because that's the nature of emergence from complex systems, we know how to get there. Reawaken into our connection, find coherence, ask for guidance. And the last one, there are 4 steps. The last, the hardest obviously, is that we let go of everything that we believe to be true. No problem is solved from the mindset that created it. We know this. Therefore, we cannot step into whatever it is that we can become in our transformed humanity if we hold on to the old mindset. I learned this, I did a master's at Schumacher College in 2016 in regenerative economics. And we were taught systems theory, and we were taught the work of Donella Meadows, who, amongst a lot of other amazing things, created a list of 12 leverage points that would affect change, from the least effective to the most effective. And the least effective is messing around with policy, changing tax structures, leaving the EU, that kind of thing. Really not that effective. Ace ending up. And the second to top one was changing the paradigm. And I came away from college thinking, we need to change the paradigm. We need a new narrative. I am a writer. I can do this. I think we need television, because television is our new storytelling. We don't sit around the fire telling each other stories anymore. We sit in front of a square screen binge watching Netflix. I began to understand the top one of Donella Meadows' 12 leverage points was abandon all paradigms, which is to say, let go of all our belief structures, which is not easy. Because the things that we absolutely believe to be foundational to our world, we don't even know are there. They are so embedded in who we are, in our framing of the world, that we believe them to be the way the world is, and not open to change. So the third of the things that I'm doing in the morning is really beginning to try to dismantle the structures of my belief systems so that I can teach everybody else how to do it, so that the people who come onto the Accidental Gods membership program, who are currently learning the reawakening into connection and the growing into coherence so that we can ask for help, will be able to also do the letting go of the belief systems. We're calling what we call making the empty-handed leap into the void, which is one of the things that spiritual paths also have talked about for many thousands of years, and I had largely ignored, I have to say, or thought that I was doing it by giving up being a vet and becoming a writer, which did feel like quite an empty-handed leap into the void, but I didn't really let go of my belief systems, I just changed them. The tools that we have are the tools of self-awareness, the tools that make us human, the tools of intuition, which is to say the tools of being able to listen to our own heart minds, letting our head mind quieten, letting the many, many voices, the many parts of ourselves, they are all welcome here. My heart mind is the bit that asks, what do you want of me? And here's answers. And we label those answers as intuition. And we don't really know where they arise from. There are many things over which I have agency. And one of them is working with the tools, the ancient tools of connection and coherence that are our birthright, and the modern tools of neuroscience, of understanding. We know now how to bring ourselves from the beta waves of the mind chatter to alpha brainwaves, to theta, to delta, to gamma. We can map these. We know about heart coherence, coherence in heart rate variability, and how to bring it about. We know so much more stuff than we used to know, and we can implement all that. We know how to build habits that endure, which is really what we're trying to do when we want to set a daily practice of meditation. 10 years ago, we couldn't do that. Or at least we didn't. Of course we could. People have done it for millennia. But we didn't really understand the science of how habits were formed. And now we do, which makes it easier for us to do that. We have video. We have Zoom. We have the ability to connect. So we can use modern technology in the most astonishing ways to be creative. And then we can build what only we can do as people so that we can step into the web of life. So conscious evolution, I hope has become apparent, is the radical transformation of what it is to be human. It's the end, well, probably not the end point, it's the next step in our evolutionary trajectory. We've gone, evolution, Brian Swan, I think, said, is the process by which clouds of hydrogen gas become rose bushes and giraffes and people. And consciousness is a part of that evolutionary process. Evolution happens under moments of intense pressure, when things are hard, and evolution needs to happen because the environment is changing. We went from being little cells with no nuclei that were busy pumping out oxygen to the point where the oxygen was becoming toxic in the environment. It had taken us several billion years to do that. And we were in danger of extinction. A bit of magic happened, emergence from that complex primordial soup. And one set of organisms became the nuclei in another set of organisms, and the new nucleated organism began to metabolize oxygen and pump out carbon dioxide. And quite a large number of millennia later, things evolved that absorbed the carbon dioxide and pumped out oxygen, and we began to get an almost stable atmosphere. And then, a few numbers of millennia later, people arrived. And many millennia after that, we moved from being tribes, isolated, moving around. At one point there were less than 10,000 of us. And we evolved language so we could share ideas more freely. We could share ideas from tribe to tribe to tribe. Then we developed writing, and we could write things down and send them much further. And then we developed the printing press, and we could write lots of things that lots of people could read, and ideas developed faster and became more intricate. And then we developed radio, and then we developed the internet. And then lockdown happened. And I don't know about you, but my interconnection on the internet just went up by at least an order of magnitude. And Jordan Hall had already worked out last December that we were 2 orders of magnitude more connected last December, before the pandemic, than we had ever been at any point in the history of consciousness. So there are 2 lots of webs. There's the World Wide Web, the technological web, the human connectivity web, lots of little self-organizing connectivity interfaces that are connecting each to the other, sharing ideas, sharing this idea. And there's the web of life, the web of consciousness, of which we are an integral part, but from which we have closed ourselves off. And my suggestion, my hope, my belief, is that the next step of consciousness is one of evolution is one of consciousness. Consciously chosen. That we are part of evolution that can now see itself, and that we can choose to make the next evolutionary step, because we're not making it by DNA anymore. We don't create people who are slightly longer in the legs so they can hunt rabbits faster, and over several generations everybody's a bit taller because they can hunt rabbits faster. It's not happening. That hasn't happened for thousands of years. But our social and cultural evolution has brought us to now, to this point, to the middle of a pandemic, which isn't going away, even though lockdown may be easing. We could talk about that, let's not. And so the next evolutionary step can be one of consciousness, where we change the nature of what it is to be human, where we let go of our belief systems that are limiting us, where we take our place in the web of consciousness that is everything, that is humanity and the oak trees outside the window and the hill and the red kite and the river in the valley and the rocks and the mycelial networks, where we are an integral part of that, where we consciously choose to take our part, to be what only we can be. Evolution is right there. We are right at the edge, I think, of the critical complexity of our hyper-complex system. And we could emerge into something where people and the planet, where the whole web of life flourishes in a creative transformation that we can't begin to imagine, but we can feel it. And trust me, people, sitting in that space, in the beginner state that I am, and I'm sure there are places to go that I haven't found yet, is utterly, astonishingly, wondrously glorious. It's worth it. And it gives us agency. It is something that we, you and I, can do in a world that might otherwise feel like it really doesn't have a whole lot of agency. We can do this. And the change that needs to happen arises from us creating that space, stepping into our place in the web of consciousness and asking, what do you want of me? We don't have to have all of the answers. We need to be in the right place. So thank you. I look forward to continuing the conversation.